Hello, and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna.
And I'm Leslie.
And today we are bringing you another Precon deep dive. We love to do those.
Mm-hmm.
In this video, we're going to break down all the cards that we have in this deck and talk to you about how this deck works and how to play it. And then we're going to, if you wait till the end, we're going to add some little tweaks that we think might be really great if you have the cards to buff this up a little bit and have some little fun and make it even better. So without further ado, let's have Leslie tell us what this commander is and what deck this is.
This deck is called Elven Empire, and its commander is Lathril, Blade of the Elves. She is a nice little 2/3 for 4 mana, converted mana cost 2 and a black and a green, and she has menace. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you get to create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token, which is fine, but it's a 2/3. And let's face it, I don't know about you, Shauna, but I don't think you're probably going to be swinging with this one very much unless you have some way of making her indestructible and buffing her up and giving her trample, which could be a tweak you do. However,
Yep.
her second ability is, I think, the thing that this deck is built around, and we'll get to all of the cards that make this happen as we go. But you can tap her and tap 10 untapped elves you control, and each opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life. So that is each opponent. I will kind of reiterate that because that means everyone around the table is going down really, really fast. It is going to put a target on your back, but that's okay because you're going to kill them fast and kill them dirty.
Just
So
run them over.
looking forward to this. So what about the breakdown of this deck, Shauna? What does it look like?
Okay, so we always go into a breakdown of how the mana curve looks. And in this deck, it's kind of mid-range. So most of the cards are in the middle. So we have 3 at mana cost 1, 4 at 2, 24 at 3 cost,
That's
4
awesome.
at 21, 8 at 5 cost, and only like 3 above that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of right in the middle there. Then we've got our color breakdown, and we have a ton of green, 27, 22 black, and 12 multicolor, and just 2 colorless. So this is about those green and black elves, which is strange.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go into the creatures, and this is again kind of crazy. There are 41 creatures in this deck, 37 land, which seems like a lot, especially with the deck of mana ramp, but we'll see. 13 instances, 3 artifacts, that's it, and 6 enchantments. So tons and tons of creatures in this deck.
Yeah, it's
So
great.
Leslie, why don't you tell us a little bit about the formula that we use when we're evaluating?
Absolutely. So, when you build a commander deck, there are certain rules that you should follow. And so, there is a formula that Shauna and I like to use to evaluate decks as well as to build our own decks. Most of the decks that Wizards put out stick very closely to this formula, is what we found anyway. So, that's what we evaluate on. So in a commander deck, you should have, of course, 1 or 2 commanders. Most of these categories can go up or down 1 or 2 cards, so just bear that in mind. 15 that will ramp you or be mana rocks of some kind. You should have 15 removal. Um, 13 cards for card draw or tutoring, 12 high impact cards that are going to win you the game, and then another 10 kind of support cards that help your high impact cards win the game, and around 34 to 35 land. So that's kind of the formula that we go by. It works pretty good. And so as we move forward, we're going to look at all of the cards in this deck, which category they fit in, and how this deck compares to the formula. So, what's our first category, Shauna?
Our first category is those ramp and mana generators, and elves like to do that. So
Yeah.
let's see how many we have. The formula says 15, and in the deck we have 11. So we've got Elvish Mystic, which is basically Minor Elves, another one.
Yeah.
So you pay 1 and you can tap it to add mana. It's a little 1/1 elf.
Mhm. And Wood Elves is a little 1/1 for 3. And when it enters the battlefield, you get to go search for a forest card, put it onto the battlefield. It doesn't say tapped, so you can use it right away, which is fantastic. And then you get to shuffle your library.
Then we have a 2/2 Wirewood Channeler for 3 and a green. That is another elf that you can tap and add X mana of any one color to your mana pool, where X is the number of elves in play. That could be crazy.
Yeah. The mana ramp in this, there's only 11, but everything that it has is pretty awesome. So Fairhaven Elf enters the battlefield. This is another one you get to go search for a basic land card. So it could be, in this case, a swamp or a forest. Put it into the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. So.
Then we have the Elvish Rejuvenator for 2 and a green at 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library.
This is funny because I keep getting the little 1/1s for 3 that go search for land. So Spring Bloom Druid is no different. Yeah. A little 1/1 for 3, and when it enters the battlefield, you get to sacrifice a land. And if you do, you get to search it for up to 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. So you're going to sacrifice a land, but you're going to go replace it and search for another one.
Then we have the Llanowar Tribe. Look at the art on this card. It's so cool. For 3 green mana, you get to, it's a 3/3, so that's not bad at all. Mm-hmm. And you can tap it and add 3 mana. So it pretty much pays for itself.
Yeah, it's a great card. I love when that card came out. Marwyn is pretty much a staple in any elf deck that you see out there, whether you're playing modern or standard, or I guess it's not in standard anymore, but it's another 1/1 for 3. But when another elf enters the battlefield under your control, it gets a 1/1 counter, and then you can tap her and add forest or green equal to her power. So the bigger she gets, the more elves you play, and it's not just ones that you cast. It's anytime an elf enters the battlefield, she gets bigger, and then you can tap her for mana for that, or you can just swing in with a big beefy creature.
Yeah. Then we have Harvest Season, which is for 2 and a white. It's a sorcery, and you can search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control. So tap them all for mana. And put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. Rampy.
Harvest Season, such a great card. And so the next 2 are artifacts. I'll just do them both, Shauna. Sure. Arcane Signet and Soul Ring are pretty much staples now in pretty much every commander deck out there. And it's so great when you can turn one Soul Ring and then turn one Arcane Signet. So with that, it's just wonderful. People hate you. Yep. So Arcane Signet is 2 mana cost. It adds 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, and Soul Ring taps for 2 colorless. So
she has done it. I've seen her do it. Okay, so removal we have for our next category. The formula calls for 15. This deck has 10, so again a little lower on that. We've got some elf creatures that do some destroying when they come in. So first of all, we have Reclamation Sage, which is for 2 and a green, a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, you may destroy target enchantment or armor. So that's just a staple to have.
Mm-hmm. And we have a nice little 2/4 for 4 mana cost. It is Null-Made Shepherd. You get to tap 4 untapped creatures you control to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. So that's a nice continuous artifact or enchantment removal that goes on there. Green is really good at removing artifacts and enchantments.
Yeah. Then we have the Jagged Scar Archers for 1 and 2 green. It power and toughness are each equal to the number of elves you control. Wow!
Big beefy.
And you can tap it, and it deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying. So finally, Shauna has some protection from flying.
Yeah, that's a great little flying removal there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have our first black card, Lys Alana Scarblade. Is an elf assassin for 3 mana cost, another 1/1. But you can tap and discard an elf card. Target creature you control gets -X until the end of turn, where X is the number of elves you control. And you are going to have a lot of elves. So the nice thing about this is it's not destroy target. It gives them minus counters, so it gets rid of those indestructibles. So that's something to consider.
Then we have Turgrid's Shadow for 3 and 2 black. It's an instant, and each player sacrifices 2 creatures. And it has, here's our Foretell mechanic, which is new to this new set.
What is Foretell?
So Foretell is when during your turn, you can pay the Foretell cost and put this card in exile. And then it's face down. And you can cast it later on for its Foretell cost. So it's cheaper to play it that way. So it's only 2 to put it out into X, and then you can play it later on. So you know it's there, but nobody else knows what's coming at them. So each player sacrificing 2 creatures. You can do it when you don't have anything, or when you have lots of elves, or definitely get rid of 2 creatures.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, every single card I've seen with Foretell has had like the 2, and then basically the rest of the mana cost is whatever it adds up to the converted mana cost. This one costs 1 more with its Foretell. So that's interesting. The next one is Poison the Cup for 1 and 2 black. It is another new card with Foretell. Destroy target creature. If this spell was foretold, you get to scry 2. So please foretell this. It will cost you a little bit more. So you got your 2 to put it out, and then you foretell it later for another 2. You can still do it fairly early. It sits there until you need it, but you get a scry off of it. So that's great.
Yeah. A creature for 2. It doesn't say anything else, just destroy.
Destroy.
Ruthless Winnower for 3 and 2 black, a 4/4. And I think this is a new card too. An elf rogue. Hate me some rogues. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-elf creature. So not you.
Oh, you know that's going in Rogue Mill, right?
Yep.
Eye Blight Massacre, another new card. Yes.
It's an older one.
It's an older card, yes. Commander Legends, it's newish. For 2 and 2 black, non-elf creatures get -2/-2 until the end of turn. Everything in your deck is an elf, you're okay, but all those little 1/1 little token things that they're creating, bye-bye. Hopefully.
See you later. Get rid of all those plants.
Yeah. Wait, no.
Won't affect unless these big beasties that she plays. Then we have Putrefy for 1 and a black. Good little instant that destroys target artifact or creature. It can't be regenerated. It's just a little destruction piece.
And the next one is a oldie but a goodie from War of the Spark for 2 and 2 black and 2 green. So it is harder to cast. It is a sorcery, but you can choose 1 or more, which is nice. As many as you like. Destroy target artifact, destroy target creature, destroy target enchantment, destroy target land, destroy target planeswalker. So you could choose all of those, but you have to have targets for it. Anytime it says destroy target, you have to have a target for it. The nice thing is for this one though, is it does say choose 1 or more. So you can just choose 1 if that's all you have.
All right, and then we're into our card draw and tutors section. So the formula calls for 13, and the deck has 9. These are a lot more elf creatures, so that's really cool that they're creatures. We have Beast Whisperer for 2 and 2 green. It's a 2/3 amazing elf druid that whenever you cast a creature spell, you draw. Such a good card.
And Masked Admirer is a 3/2 for 4. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. And then whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay 2. If you do, you return Masked Admirers from your graveyard to your hand. So if it does die, that's okay. You're going to return it to your hand because you'll have lots of mana to do that with. And then you can play it again and draw another card. So it doesn't get exiled the second time. It's not a copy, so you can just keep doing that over and over again.
Cool. We have Voice of Many, which is another elf. It's a 3/3 elf for 4, 2 and 2 green. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each opponent who controls fewer creatures. Hopefully everyone. So
Hopefully. And Sylvan Messenger is a 2/2 for 4. This is a trample elf. Well, why would it be a trample elf at a 2/2? Well, when it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library, and you put all elf cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest at the bottom of your library in any order. So that's a great way to get some like elves back in your hand when you think you're running out. You're going to be playing them fast. You're probably going to have an empty hand a lot.
Oh, yeah. Then we have Miara, Thorn of the Glade, a little 1/2 black elf scout for 1 and a black legendary creature. Whenever it enters or another elf you control dies, you may pay 1 and 1 life. If you do, you draw a card. So that could get out of hand as well.
Yeah, I love that. Nice little new partner card. And Twin Blade Assassins is, I think, our biggest elf we've seen so far at a 5/4 for 5. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, draw a card. So you don't have to worry about them blocking. You get some benefit out of that if you have this guy out on the battlefield. And I think we have some sack outlets in here, but yeah.
Yeah, well, they're going to need to kill elves, because if you get 10 elves and tap them, they lose 10 life.
Yeah. You'll just draw more and play more.
Yeah. Moldervine Reclamation for 3 green and a black. It is an enchantment that says whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So you're paying the life, but you're gaining the life, drawing a card here and drawing a card with the other thing, with Myra or whatever her name is. Like, those 2 cards together is awesome.
So good. Yeah. And Bounty of Skemfar is a 3 mana cost sorcery. You get to reveal the top 6 cards of your library, which is amazing for 3 mana cost. And you can put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and an elf card from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So you get an elf out of it, a land out of it, all for 3 mana, which is great.
Yeah, that's a new card, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Just in the commander deck, yeah.
Cool. Then we have Ambition's Cost, which is a 3 and a black sorcery that you draw 3 cards and lose 3. No biggie.
Standard, but good. Standard, but good. Yeah. So our next section is the most exciting section. It is our high impact card. These are cards that we think will probably win you the game. Now, just like Anawan, when we did Anawan deep dive, this deck hasn't been, as you've noticed, following the rules of commander decks, and that is because it is a heavily themed deck. There are 12 recommended in the formula, and this deck actually has 18 that we considered to be fairly high impact. So yeah, that you're sacrificing in some of the other areas, but this makes up for it. The first one is Dwynen Gild Leaf Dane for 4 mana cost. It is a 3/4 with reach. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. So nice little life gain, and it's lord. It buffs up your creatures, and that's going to be pretty awesome. Speaking of buffing,
here's another one. Imperious Prefect, or Perfect, I guess. Imperious Perfect?
Yeah, perfect.
2 and a green.
Harry Potter, we want to say prefect.
Yeah. Other elves you control get +1/+1, and you can pay 1 and pay 1 and tap it and create an elf.
Just keep creating elves.
Over and over.
And then drawing cards, because you got stuff out that. Anyways, Canopy Tactician is another other elves you control get +1/+1. And this one has some mana along with it. 3 mana, in fact. It's a nice little 3/3. So it's got a body. It's a 3/3. It buffs up your other elves. It fits in multiple categories. Just a great card.
Elvish Arch Druid for 1 and 2 green. It's a 2/2, and other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. Tap 1 mana for each elf you control.
So you don't need to worry about mana when you got him out on the battlefield.
No.
He makes things go really fast. So Harold, King of Skemvar, this is a new card for 1 and a black and a green. He's a 3/2 with a menace. And when Harold enters the battlefield, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your library and reveal an elf, warrior, or Tyvar card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your library in random order. So it's a nice little tutor card, also a body, and he has a menace. This would be another option for the commander if you wanted to switch out and use him as your commander in this deck instead.
True, which you might. We have Elvish Promenade for 3 and green. It is a tribal sorcery. So it has put a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token onto the battlefield for each elf you control. So it's not a creature, it's a sorcery, but it really is great for elf tribal decks.
Basically
like
doubles your elves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shaman of the Pack is another 3/2 for 3. And when it enters the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to the number of elves you control. Which is just gross. So let's double your elves and then do this.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
And I get to do the card that Les loves so much. I think it's a fun card too. Poison Tip Archer for 2 and a black and a green. This little elfie boy has reach and death touch. And whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses a life.
Mm-hmm.
You have elves, they can die. Everybody else's creatures dying causes them to lose life. It just tells them to back off.
Well, and the nice thing too is that this helps with board wipes. So that's one thing that this deck is going to have as a downfall, which we'll talk about in our tweak section, is you can build out your board and play all your stuff really, really fast. But once it's all out there and you have no cards in hand, and someone does a board wipe, suddenly you have a hard time building up. So if you get your Poison Tip Archer out there, suddenly they don't want to do a board wipe because you have 70 elves and they all take 70 damage. So let's hope. Abomination of Llanowar is a 3 mana cost legendary elf horror with vigilance and menace. And its power and toughness are each equal to the number of elves you control, plus the number of elf cards in your graveyard. So someone does happen to get a board wipe out, but you have this in your hand. Suddenly all those elves continue to make this one nice and big. Elf zombies.
Kind of creepy, this version of the card. That's so wrong. But then we have Skemvar Shadow Sage. I think this is a new card too. It's a 2/5 for 3 and a black, an elf cleric. And when it enters the battlefield, choose 1. So each opponent loses X life, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. Or you gain X life, where X is the greatest creatures you control that have a creature type in common. Depends on your situation. Are you dying or finishing everybody else up?
I love that versatility. Lissalalin Huntmaster is a 3/3 for 4, and whenever you cast an elf spell, you may create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So you play an elf, you get an elf. It's fantastic.
Party! Voice of the Woods for 3 and 2 green. It's a 2/2. So what? Well, it tap 5 untapped elves you control. Put a 7/7 green elemental creature token with trample onto the battlefield. Woohoo!
Suddenly you have elementals. Wolverine Riders is one that Shauna is going to love. It is a 6 mana cost elf warrior 4/4. And at the beginning of each upkeep, not just yours, you create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. And when another elf enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. Now, you have a 1/1 coming into the battlefield, but you have 3 lords on the battlefield, giving them all +1/+1. It is not a 1/1, it is a 4/4. So remember that when you're gaining life.
Yep. Then this is a game finishing card.
I love this card so much.
Enray's Forerunners for 5 and 3 green. 7/7, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. He's going to get out there, and when he enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain vigilance and trample until end of turn. You're ready to swing, all in, going with this guy. That's what he does.
Just makes things big and bigger, and Elven Ambush. Create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token for each elf you control. So another double those elves card.
Crown of Skemfar for 2 and 2 green. It's a aura enchantment, and you enchant a creature, and it gets +1 for each elf you control, and has reach. So here's another help. And you can pay 2 and a green and return the crown from your graveyard to your hand. Keep doing this over again. Helps you a lot. Sure.
It's pretty awesome. Elderfang Venom is an enchantment, so there's not that many enchantments in this deck, but here's one of them. For 4 mana cost, attacking elves you control have Death Touch, and whenever an elf you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. So suddenly, you don't have to worry about attacking, because if they kill your elves, they're just going to lose life because of it. So that's okay.
They're going to want it.
This is going to be a be aggressive. Be aggressive.
Oh, yes. Binding of the Old Gods. Here is a saga. We talked about sagas before. They are enchantments that come in, and you play them for the number of turns that are indicated on the card. They go away. So on the first turn that this thing is out, you destroy target non-land permanent and opponent. Second turn, you search your library for a forest card, put it in the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. And on the third, your creatures gain Death Touch. It's crazy.
Yep.
It's got all the things you need.
All the things you need. All the things you need. Yep. So our last section before we get to land is other cards on theme / win conditions / specialty cards. Basically, these are the cards that fill up the deck and support hopefully your other cards. Now, a lot of times you're like, well, why wouldn't I just put in another 10 high impact cards? That's all fine and dandy, but not all cards can be high impact. A lot of those things cost a little bit more, and sometimes you just need filler, and you want filler that will support the rest of your cards. So Cultivator of Blades, Elf Artificer 1/1 for 5, and it has Fabricate. So what Fabricate is you have a choice when it comes in. You can put 2 1/1 counters on it, or create 2 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens, whichever you need. I would recommend in this case, because of its second ability, that you put 2 1/1 counters on it. Whenever this creature attacks, you may have other attacking creatures get +X until the end of turn, where X is this guy's power. And remember, if you have lords on the battlefield that are giving it +1/+1, again, if you had all 3 of them that are in this deck out, then it automatically gets +3/+3. You put 2 counters on it. Now it's a +6/+6, and all your creatures get +6/+6. Good support there. It might even be high impact, but it's conditional.
Yeah. Timberwatch Elf for 2 and a green. It's a 1/2, and you can tap it, and target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of elves on the battlefield. So similar sort of thing. As long as you have lots of elves, you can give another creature +X/+X by tapping.
And then Risk the Exiled for 3. It's a 3/2. And when he attacks or she attacks, you gain 1 life for each elf you control. And you can pay a black and sacrifice an elf to regenerate Reese. So nice way to keep it on the battlefield. You're going to hopefully have lots of elves in there anyway that you can sacrifice if you do need to bring it back. And then you're going to get that life gain back.
It just supports that whole aggressive piece of this deck.
Exactly.
So, Elderfang Ritualist for 2 and a black. It's a 3/1 elf cleric. And when it dies, return another target elf from your hand. It's a 3/1. It's going to die, but who cares?
Yeah. Need some graveyard recursion because you're going to be attacking. Jaspera Sentinel, for one, it's a 1/2 with reach. You can also tap it and tap an untapped creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. So it does have a little bit of mana to it. I probably wouldn't use it for that. It's just a kind of a 1/2 with reach that helps you with those flyers. It's a nice little common filler card.
Mm-hmm. Golgari Findbroker, 3/4 Elf Shaman for 2 black and 2 green. When it enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard. What you need, you can go get it.
Mm-hmm. And then Eye Blight Colors is a 5 mana cost 3/3, and when it dies, you get to create 3/1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens, then mill 3 cards. So there is a downfall to it because you're milling 3 cards, but maybe you'll be putting something in your graveyard that you can grab back with Golgari Findbroker or something like that. But you get 3 elves out of it as well. So that's a really nice little card that gives you lots of bodies.
Mm-hmm. We have Numa Jaraga Chieftain for 2 and a green. It's a 2/2. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay XX. When you do, distribute X +1 counters among any number of target. So this one has partner too. So you could partner it with Black Myra or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and use them as your commanders.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you sure could.
Different options for this deck.
Pact of the Serpent is a sorcery for 3 mana. You can choose a creature type. I hope you choose elves. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of creatures they control of that chosen type. So this is a versatile card. If you need to draw some cards, that's fantastic. You might have just had a board wipe and you need to get those back into your hand. And you only have a few elves, so you would use elves and choose yourself. Or perhaps they have their own little tribal deck going on and they have goblins, and you are going to give them the gift of drawing cards and losing life.
Possibly dying.
Lots of things you could do.
Yeah. Return Upon the Tide. It's a sorcery for 4 and a black. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If it's an elf, create 2 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. This card has Foretell for 3 and a black. So you can have that ready and waiting out there.
So Roots of Wisdom is a 2 mana cost sorcery. You can mill 3 cards, then return a land card or elf card from your graveyard to your hand. It doesn't need to be one that you just milled that turn. So again, you get some graveyard recursion. If you can't, you get to draw a card. So there's no downfall to using this card, basically. Sometimes you fail to find, or you put stuff in your graveyard and you're like, oh crap, I didn't get anything that I needed. But you still get a card draw after that. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. Then there's this neat little artifact called Serpent's Soul Jar for 2 and a black. It has whenever an elf you control dies. Then you can tap this and pay 2 life. Until end of turn, you may cast a creature spell from among Serpent's Soul Jar. Interesting.
I love it.
Yeah.
Just bring them back. Put them not in your graveyard, but just like anything that dies after you get that on the battlefield, you can just replay again by paying life. Hopefully you have life gain for every time you attack. Prowess of the Fair is a 2 mana cost tribal enchantment elf. Whenever another non-token elf is put into your graveyard from play, you may put a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token into play. So if you have this on the battlefield, it doesn't matter if your elves die because you just replace them with more elves.
Crazy. And then we have another lovely enchantment called Pride of the Perfect for 3 and a black. Elves you control get +2/+0. They're aggressive, they're going to die, but who cares?
You're
running them over.
Mm-hmm. All right, our last section before we get to tweaks is land. We won't spend a ton of time explaining each of the land, but we'll give you an idea of what's in there. Formula says around 34. This deck has 37. So we'll start with the the dual color lands. We have Fell Orchard and Golgari Guildgate, which both just enter tap and tap for a black and a green. Golgari Rot Farm, and you will have to sacrifice a land, or sorry, return a land to your hand when you play it, but it taps for 2, which is fantastic. Jungle Hollow, it enters tapped, and it will tap for a black or a green, and it gains you a life when it enters. So those are kind of like our dual color lands. They're all fairly basic. I love that Golgari Rot Farm. It's always a good card. So.
And then there is the Skemfar Elder Hall, which is a new land that I love for. It enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps for green. But it has on it that you can pay two black and a green to sacrifice it, and up to 1 target creature you don't control gets -2/-2 until end of turn, and you get to create 2 green elf creature tokens. You only get to do that as a sorcery, but it's one of those things where after they've done a board wipe, you still have things you can do. So it's pretty awesome.
It is.
I'll just do the last
3.
3 that are commander staples that we've talked about before. Command Tower, which is just that awesome land that you can tap for any color in your command color identity. Path of Ancestry, which is great for
tribal
decks like this one. It enters tap, but you can add any mana of any color in your color identity, commander's color identity. When that mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type, you get to scry. So it's one of those scry ones. And then Myriad Landscape is the one that taps for colorless, but it you can sacrifice it and go get 2 basic lands that share a land type. So 2 forests or something like that.
And we have a lot of basics in this deck. We have 13 swamps and 16 forests. So of course there are other little kind of lands and things that you can do to just swap those basics out if you want to. But you definitely don't have to. There's always stuff you can do with land to make a deck better. That can get expensive.
Yes.
And our next section is the favorite section, which is what, Shauna?
Tweaky time.
I guess.
Let's tweak this
yeah,
deck.
exactly. Let's tweak it. What can we do to make it even better?
Craziness. So we've got Call the Death Dwellers, which is a card that it's a 2 and a black for black card that lets you go and get 2 cards in your graveyard that are worth up to 3 mana cost. And they come in. One of them comes in with Death Touch, and one of them comes in with Menace counters. You can choose which creatures to put that on. So that's a great way to get back some of those little elves. So that's what Call the Death Dweller is.
And then we thought maybe you might want to add, I mean, they have all the other lords in it, so why not have this one? Elvish Clan Caller gives all elves 1+1+1. I think the reason it's not in this deck is because it has the additional ability that you can pay and go search for another Elvish Clan Caller. Of course, we're in Commander. You're not going to have another Elvish Clan Caller in this deck, so that's a moot point for that ability. But it still gives all your other elves +1+1. Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
And then if you have it, play it. Crater Hoof Behemoth, it's insane. 8C and that thing come down. It's for 5 and 2 green, a 5/5 beast with haste. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X until end of the number of creatures you control. Yeah. It's just a game-winning card. It's
especially if you have like 30 elves on the battlefield, everything gets +30 and trample, and you can swing at everyone and take them all out at the same time if you have Crater Hoof Behemoth. People are going to be waiting for a counterspell. Should be waiting with a counterspell for that.
They'll be very scared.
If you do decide to put him in. He is a little expensive because I think he came out with Jumpstart, correct?
Yeah.
Anyways, Forever Young, we were thinking that with such a creature heavy deck, of course, dies to removal is a very true and very real thing. So being able to bring things back, we saw lots of cards that could be play-things from exile or from your graveyard already, but Forever Young is another one that you could put in there as a source free for 2 mana cost. You can put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library and draw a card. So if they're all in your graveyard, suddenly you can put all your elves back on top of your deck and just draw them and play them again and get them back out.
A lot of people don't use that card.
I kind of think it's a must for this deck. It's a common. Like, why would you? It's a card draw. Like, you should put this one in there for sure.
It's not hard to get.
No.
Heroic Intervention for 1 and a green. It isn't too hard to get anymore either, which is nice. An instant that is, again, you need to protect all that stuff you have. So giving permanents you control hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. It's just what you need at that moment.
Yeah. Keep it for the board wipe. Don't play it just to save one dude. Keep it for the board wipe.
For sure.
So the other issue, of course, when you have such a low mana curve, we talked about having no cards in hand because you've played them all out on the battlefield. Lead the Stampede will help you with that. It's another sorcery for 3 mana cost. You get to look at the top 5 cards of your library and then reveal any number of creature cards from among them and put them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library. In such a creature-heavy deck, you're likely to get mostly creatures in that draw. You do have to reveal them so everyone will know what you're pulling, but that's totally fine if you get a mitt full of creatures that you can play again.
Yeah. Icon of Ancestry. Leslie and I both play tribal deck. It's kind of a must-have for any of those. So it's a 3 mana cost artifact that you choose a creature type as it enters the battlefield. Obviously, you're going to choose elves, and creatures get +1/+1. But you can also pay 3 and tap this and look at the top 3 cards of your library and reveal a creature card that is that type and put it in your hand. So that's a great thing to do on the end of somebody's turn, just before your turn, is look and see if you've got a creature coming out to go get it.
Yeah. It's kind of another kind of must for this deck if you can get it. So Heraldic Banner is a 3 mana cost artifact. It enters the battlefield. You choose a color. I would recommend green in this deck because most of your creatures are green. Creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+0, and it has the benefit of adding 1 mana of the chosen color. So you get a green mana out of it. Creatures you control get +1/+0. I mean, where's the downfall in that? Nice, another way to buff things up.
Yes. This enchantment, Parallel Lives, it's a token deck too, right? You're playing all these elf tokens. You're making all these tokens come out. So for 3 and a green, it's an enchantment that if an effect would put 1 or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many instead. So it's just going to make that whole crazy token shenanigans even better.
Yeah. So we found a planeswalker that you might want to put in this deck as well. Freyalise Llanowar's Fury for 5 mana cost. She is a 3 loyalty planeswalker. You can +2 her to create a 1/1 green elf druid creature token that can tap for mana. So little mana generator or elf generator that you get to plus her for. You can then also -2 her to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. We all know that there's those that you need to get rid of. And then -6, you can draw a card for each green creature you control. So suddenly you need to fill up your hand again, and she can accomplish that for you. So
yeah, only a couple turns.
Yeah.
Then here's another card that if you haven't played in this deck, it's an Allosaurus Shepherd for 1. It's a 1/1 elf shaman that can't be countered. Green spells you control can't be countered. It just makes real pain in the butt for everybody else around the table. And you can pay 4 and 2 green until end of turn. Each elf creature you control has base power and toughness of 5/5 and becomes a dinosaur in addition to its other creature types.
Yeah.
So they're already buffed up because you have your lords out. They're just going to be that much bigger.
Yeah, suddenly they're not 1/1s with that. They're 5/5s with that. Another planeswalker you might want to put in this deck is Azure Renegade Leader. He is a legendary elf warrior. Or no, he's not a planeswalker. Sorry. He's just a legendary elf warrior creature. Sorry, I was thinking of like later. 3 mana cost 2/2. You can pay 1 to regenerate another elf or target elf. So he basically gives all your other elves regenerate, which is fantastic. And you can also pay 2 and 3 green, and elf creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample. So he's got lots of versatility as well. And I think that one is new with this deck or with this set. It's just not in this deck naturally.
Yeah, I can't remember if that's out or not, but it's pretty awesome. Here's another little card that might help support you getting control of the other person a little bit. People. Nath of Gild Leaf. It's for 3 and a black and a green, an elf warrior for 4. That at the beginning of your upkeep, you may have target opponent discard a card at once. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you may create a 1/1 creature token. So a lot of people have some discard stuff happening. This would really help you build up your board.
And then we have a nice little 5/5 elf warrior for 4, which is fantastic. You get to champion an elf when it comes out. What the heck does champion an elf mean? Well, when this creature enters the battlefield, you sacrifice it unless you exile another elf you control. So you have another elf on the battlefield, you exile that elf, it becomes this creature's champion. When this creature leaves the battlefield, that card returns to the battlefield. So I guess it would be, this one would become its champion, and it's basically like, it's okay, dude, I'll fight for you. When he dies, you got to come back into battle. The nice other ability that this have is that you can pay 3 and create a 2/2 green wolf creature token, which is a wonderful thing because wolves you control have death touch. Suddenly you have some blockers that have death touch, and it's a great little card. Perfect addition to this deck.
Really fun. Wrens run Vanquisher for 1 and a green, a 3/3. But as an additional cost to cast this spell, reveal an elf card from your hand or pay 3. You're going to have elves in your hand. And it has death touch, a 3/3 with death touch for 2. Yeah. Why not?
And everybody needs all of their things to have indestructible. So Eldrazi Monument for 5. It's actually not that expensive of a card. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and have flying and indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice a creature. If you can't, you have to sacrifice Eldrazi Monument. It's okay. You're making tons of creatures. So this card was made for token decks that you want to give things flying and just kill really fast.
Insane. Soul of New Pyrexia. It's a 6-cost artifact creature avatar, 6/6 with trample. And you can pay 5, and permanents you control gain indestructible till end of turn. And you can pay 5 and exile the Soul of Pyrexia from your graveyard. Permanents you control gain indestructible till end of turn. So it's just another card for protecting everything. Mm-hmm. Plus, it's a 6/6 trampler. It's just it's going to help you finish off the game.
Absolutely. Awesome. And I mean, we could probably go on for another hour with all kinds of things. There are so many elves out there. So those are the ones that we found to give you some kind of wet your whistle, give you a start to tweaking this deck. And we always suggest that when you're tweaking that you play it a couple times first and then decide how you want to tweak it. What does the deck do that you really like? What do you feel that it's missing? But yeah, those are our suggestions for this time. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can check us out. Of course, you found us on YouTube. If you want, we are on Twitch. We do regular Commander stream, and we do regular streaming of Magic Arena on a weekly basis, several times a week. Feel free to join us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Reach out. We want to hear what you would do with this deck. If there's anything that you think we missed, or any cards that you think that we should put in our decks that maybe we didn't think about or didn't see. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. And until next time,
drop those magic cards and have fun doing it. Thanks,
bye, guys.